Okay guys, we're back again. So we're into the next part, which is chapter 17. So we will continue without further ado. Alright, so chapter 17. Mr. Haynes. Mr. Haynes, is that you? Yes, Mrs. Rose. I've been waiting for you, Mr. Haynes. I want to see you for a few minutes. I suppose you must be hungry. It's that girl Maisie. She's going to come to you with a long story about Phyllis. But don't believe her. She is a terrible liar. It must be something serious for Mrs. Rose always. It must be something serious, for Mrs. Rose always waited until after supper before coming to talk to him. Some quarrel about your comb, Mrs. Rose explained. Maisie says that Phyllis was using your comb and brush and she had no right to. Phyllis says she wasn't using it. She was moving it from the table to the shelf. I don't know the right of it, but if even Phyllis was using the comb, that was no reason why Maisie should go on as she go on. So that was no reason why Maisie should go on as she go on. She called Phyllis so much coolie dog, so much lousy head. Ask her what she know about comb and brush in the village where she come from. Maisie have no right to behave like that, Mr. Haynes. She tell her too that she's a servant and if she want to use a comb and brush, she could use it because you and she are friends. But Phyllis should know her place and a lot of other things, she said. Well, Phyllis answered her and they had a big row in the yard. And Phyllis cried, now Maisie say as soon as you come, she's coming to tell you about it. And she's speaking away as if she tell you, you will believe before anybody else. That is why I stop you, said Mrs. Rose. I'm very sorry to hear all this, Mrs. Rose. Mr. Haynes, Maisie is too aggravating. The girl is a burden to me. When I spoke to her this afternoon, she answered me in a way I had to chase her out of the yard. She's going to bring me in trouble. One day I am going to lose my temper with her, and the police going to have to come for me. I send and tell her uncle to come for her. I don't want Maisie in my house anymore. She's the root of all my trouble. Lately, Mrs. Rose had said more than once that Maisie was the root of all her trouble, and the sentence had no meaning that Haynes could see. I know it grieves you to hear this, because I see you and Maisie are good friends, but I can't have her worrying Phyllis like that. Phyllis loves me, Mr. Haynes. Mr. Ben deserted me and leave me to perish, but Phyllis wouldn't do me that. Look at the work Phyllis does around here, up and down the whole day. Sometimes my temper bad and I quarrel, but she don't answer me back like Maisie. Gooms at the parlor, who see how Phyllis work for me, offer her $4 a month and a room in the yard to work for him and his mother. 2 of them alone, very easy work. Another lady, a Mrs. Clark, is after her, but Phyllis wouldn't leave me to go work for them. She see me struggling with my troubles and she remained by my side. And Maisie, who do me so much already, she don't help and now she wants to make my life a burden by driving Phyllis. All your soap and toothpaste, Maisie use it regular. I tired of speaking to her. She will go and play your gramophone when you are not here. I warn her. I don't forget the day she break the bike. When you miss anything or anything break is Maisie. Mr. Haynes, not Phyllis. All right, Mr. Haynes. I won't keep you back from your supper anymore. Everything is on the table. Mrs. Rose was hardly out before Maisie came boistering in. She was eating ice cream from a cone and she was in high spirits. If you don't know what happened, Mr. Haynes, if you know what happened, Mr. Haynes, she said as she sat on the bed and sucked at her ice cream and laughed. What happened? Well, Mrs. Rose didn't give me no dinner, but I had 6 cents, so I went up to the parlor, the one the Chinaman keeping by the drugstore. So I tell him, I said, "Hey, Chinese, give me 3 ice cream cone. That is 6 cents. He look at me and he says something to his friend in Chinese, and then he asks me where I come from. No damn business of yours, I tell him. Give me the cones quick. He give me them and I see him go to the drawer and stop as if to give me change. So I stand up, although I know no change for me. He give me 3 cents. I say, haha, let me get out of this quick. He say, you nice gal. He said when I was going, I ain't watch him. I go down the, that's what he said when I was going. I ain't watch him. I go down the road, I eat the cone. My head hurt me because I eat them so fast. And then when I go back to the parlor, as soon as he see me, the ugly China dog, he say, are you so nice, gal? You come back? You like me? Me like you too. I was mad to spit in his face. The man so ugly. But I tell him, yes, you nice Chinese man. I want 3 more cone. I eat 2 of them on the spot and I walk off. I ain't pay him a cent. What did he say? He say, you nice girl, you come back tomorrow. Buy more cone. I tell him, yes, me nice girl. You nice Chinese man. I come back tomorrow. You give me more cone. But Maisie, Haynes was horrified. But Mr. Haynes, since the man so fresh, I go in tomorrow. I will eat this cone too. This is how they sell tomorrow. Tomollow. Tomorrow. So tomorrow I will eat his cone too. But you are begging for trouble, said Mr. Haynes. Trouble? All he is going to get out of me, he get already. And when I'm ready, I'll put him in his place so quick. Anyway, Maisie, let us forget the Chinaman for a bit. I want to talk to you. She looked up quickly at him. Don't raise your voice, though, for heaven's sake. Miss Atwell is in Mrs. Rose's bedroom, but still, you know when you get excited what happens. All right, Mr. Haynes, she said submissively. She seemed to be expecting some revelation. Something happened here this afternoon between you and Phyllis. Oh, that, she burst out. That lousy head coolie gal. Steady, Maisie. Remember what I told you. She quieted down, but she was now all resentment. The girl come in here and start to use your comb and brush and I stop her. She have no right. All coolie head have lice and she is too nasty. This was an out and out slander for Phyllis, who, as in customary with Indians, bathes often, more often than anybody in the house, getting up at an extraordinary early hours to do so before her work began. Mrs. Rose took her weekly all-over wash on Sunday after breakfast. Maisie sometimes 3 times a day when the weather was hot, but was inclined to avoid it on cold mornings. Miss Atwell went to the bath only at long intervals, but Haynes always heard. Maisie made a public affair of Miss Atwell's bath. Miss Atwell hit upon the plan of going to bathe only when Maisie was out. Maisie countered by always inquiring as soon as she returned whether Miss Atwell had had a bath. But what a naughty girl. Maisie's really terrible at times. And she always using your soap and toothpaste, continued Maisie. If you miss anything, Mr. Haynes, it's she who take it. But Haynes knew even without Mrs. Rose's exhortations that this was not true. Phyllis was as honest as the day, proud of it too, and deservedly so. All number 2 knew it and trusted her implicitly. Now, Maisie, forget about Phyllis for a while. What is wrong between yourself and Mrs. Rose? What is wrong between Mrs. Rose and me? She said. And she said slowly and then more briskly. I'm going to tell you, Mr. Haynes, what is causing the whole trouble. Mrs. Rose is telling everybody that I am the cause of all this business with Mr. Ben, but she lied. Not so loud, not so loud. He motioned her to come and sit nearer to him. She came obediently. That Mr. Ben, you know he bring his freshness to me, Mr. Haynes. What? Said Haynes. Not so loud, said Maisie and laughed uproariously. Yes, but that isn't what Mrs. Rose vexed with me for. She vexed because I know all the time this thing was going on and didn't tell her. Maisie chuckled, and though Haynes did not know what she was going to say, he started to chuckle too. Maisie's laugh was infectious, and of late she was always telling him things that set him chuckling. Let me tell you from the beginning. On mornings, long time ago now, I used to see the nurse and Mr. Ben whenever Mrs. Rose and Phyllis gone to the market. He always taking her room. He always talking in her room. They talking and showing and so on. Then sometimes they used to be in front the bedroom. They had lost the key to the door and as was a bedroom, nobody used to worry to open it. So I unlocked it early one morning and shut the door just as usual. I was preparing for them. Maisie's good temper was quite returned. Well, she continued her story. Well, I opened the door sudden and catch them fair and square on the bed. So I start to laugh. Mr. Ben jump up and he start to curse, but the nurse, that is a woman you hear, Mr. Haynes, all she say is, well, what you laughing at? I sure you're doing the same thing already. So I laughed at them and went outside. Little bit after, Mr. Ben come out and he called me. He say, hey you better don't tell your aunt anything what happened this morning. She will corn your behind for you. I's mine. Is mine she going to corn? I tell him. He wanted to frighten me, but it take better than him to frighten me, Mr. Haynes. So I went on laughing. At the same time, the ice cream man was passing. So I tell him, look here, buy an ice cream for me or you're living pickled. He say, I ain't have no money, I tell you, and she ain't have. I tell him, it's nearly 9 o'clock. Just now Mrs. Rose coming, and if you don't buy 12 cents ice cream for me, I sell you. So he bite. After that, Mr. Haynes, I live fat off the two of them. Whenever I wanted ice cream cone, 6 cents, 12 cents, anything, they used to give me. Now Mrs. Rose find out that. She say that I am the cause of the whole thing. She say if I had told her, all this wasn't going to happen. But it was all her fault. Mr. Haynes. She knew what she knew and she should have been on the lookout. The man was her man. Was her business to watch him, not mine. It was her business to watch him, not mine. I saw my chance to make my little coppers and I made them. You don't think I was right, Mr. Haynes? Haynes did not reply. You think I was wrong, Mr. Haynes? It wasn't my business. Coppers or no coppers, how could I go and tell Mrs. Rose that I see Mr. Ben in bed with the nurse? Quiet, Maisie. I agree. So I wasn't wrong, Mr. Haynes? Her face was half in the shadow from which her eyes shone out, sparkling into his appealing, and yet with a confidence, half amused, half amused. Say I wasn't wrong, Mr. Haynes. No, I can't blame you, Maisie. She smiled a happy, triumphant smile and looked more handsome than he had ever seen her look before. I'm going, Mr. Haynes. It's 8:30. I have a date. Let Mrs. Rose say what she like. Mr. Boyce, said Haynes. Yes, Boyce. He want me to prove my love, but let him wait. She left, but returned after a minute. If you are lonely, I can stay with you, Mr. Haynes. No, Maisie, I have work to do. You run away to your date. Long after she had gone, he sat cursing himself for the fool that he was to have missed that chance of keeping her away from the dangerous Boyce. Even if he were not himself ready to speak with her. And we know what that means. And that's the end of chapter 17. So guys, when we come back, we will be reading chapter 18. And we're going to see what's happening there. So the story, we're going so you probably just hearing my voice, can't see my face. Alright, so I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you for listening. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. So you go to my channel, my YouTube channel, Karen Vibes, and that's KarenVibes with an exclamation sign. And you can subscribe to my channel. Please leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Alright, about what I've been reading so far. So guys, enjoy the rest of the week. Have a productive week. Keep safe. Look out for each other. Love each other. Take care of yourselves. Bye. See you again soon.